Hi, I'm Tom Burgundy.
And I'm Susan Smith.
And this is ENF. On tonight's special episode, we'll be discussing these two fantastic books, The Wars by Timothy Finley
and The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. We'll be discussing three themes that have a relation to both The Great Gatsby and The Wars. The themes are fight versus flight,
escape from reality,
and internal versus external wars. Throughout any piece of written literature, it is inevitable that the characters of a story face a moment of controversy and adversity that calls for immediate action and decision-making.
Due to the irrational nature of human beings, it is almost impossible to judge actions and reactions during a period of crisis. In F. Scott Fitzgerald's The Great Gatsby and Timothy Finley's The Wars, it is controversial whether individuals within these stories are taking appropriate actions based on experiences and situations or just making an excuse to not deal with them.
Through analyzing the elements fight versus flight, internal versus external wars, and escape from reality, it will prove that characters' actions can cause the turning point that they face throughout their own unique and personal story.
These actions, or inactions, deeply develop each character on a personal level and develop the storyline as it progresses through the story.
We're here live with Nick Carraway in the interview room, and we're here to compare The Great Gatsby and The Wars and see that when a character in these stories experiences a situation that requires immediate attention, there are certain reactions appropriate to dealing with the problem. When a character comes to the point in these novels and faces these types of situations, we can identify this as a theme of fight versus flight. So, being one of the main characters in one of these amazing novels, how do you feel the theme fight versus flight can be best described?
Okay, I think that this theme could be best described as the character having the option to fight, meaning facing the problem right on in that moment. Flight, which is running away from the problem itself.
Okay. Both The Wars and The Great Gatsby, characters are both faced with death. They make very different choices in their actions and their speech. So, as a narrator for The Great Gatsby, you said that both Daisy and Gatsby are faced with a scenario that calls for quick decision-making. While Daisy never admitted to her role in the death of Myrtle Wilson, Gatsby does tell you how she had killed Myrtle without weighing in the possibility of recourse from her actions. Our question to you today is, can you tell us what Gatsby has said to you when his story had come to a climax?
Oh man, well, those words will always be in my mind actually. He said Daisy stepped on it, and I told her to stop, but she couldn't. She fell over into my lap and I drove on. Sorry, it's just that his words were so passionate and they'll always be engraved in my mind.
Like, our last question for you is that in terms of the theme fight versus flight, do you feel that Gatsby and Daisy had chosen flight or fight?
Once the car had ran over Myrtle, Gatsby made no attempt in helping the poor woman, so in that situation he took the option of taking flight.
Wow, Susan, that was an excellent interview with Mr. Nick Carraway. Shortly, I'll bring out Mr. Timothy Finley, the author of this here book called The Wars. Alright everyone, I'd like everyone to welcome Mr. Timothy Finley. Great guy. Mentioned in Susan's excellent interview earlier with Nick Carraway, the situation that they had to deal with is completely different than the one that Robert Ross will tell us about shortly. So, Mr. Finley, in your book I understand there's a scene where Robert Ross comes face to face with a German soldier.
That's right.
In the case of coming face to face with an enemy soldier in the middle of a war, how do you think Robert Ross felt in that situation?
Well, encountered with the possibility of death, Ross decided to take action and fight. Quote in my book, he saw the German reaching over the lip of the crater. Something exploded. The German gave a startled cry and was suddenly dead, and with his arms dangling down. And in an instant, making decisions based on the situation at hand, an act of grace was returned with an immediate death for this merciful German soldier. Ross had mistaken a quick movement towards his binoculars for the act of reaching for a rifle. Ironically, the German had the rifle beside him the entire time, and it was Robert Ross who ultimately dealt death.
So you're saying that Ross killed him accidentally?
Yes.
Hey, can I ask you a few questions?
Oh, sure.
Okay, my name is Susan Smith. Hi, what's your name?
Zena.
Alright, I just have a few questions to ask you. Have you ever read the book The Great Gatsby?
Oh, yeah, I actually have.
Did you like it?
Yeah, it was a really good book, but, tragic ending though.
I know. I just want to ask you a question. How did you feel about the theme flight versus fight that was really present in the book?
Well, I felt if Daisy and Gatsby really talked it out and told everybody that was an accident, maybe the tragic ending for Gatsby wouldn't have been his death,
Okay, that's a great opinion.
Hello, do you have time to answer a few questions?
Yeah, sure I do.
Alright, well my name's Tom Burgundy from ENN News. Have you ever read the book The Great Gatsby?
Yeah, actually, I read that last summer. It's a great book. I love it.
Awesome. So you're familiar with the theme of fight versus flight then?
Yes, for sure.
Okay, in your opinion, do you think that Gatsby and Daisy dealt with the situation of Myrtle's death appropriately? Like, would you have acted differently, or?
Actually, I think that's just a natural human instinct to do, is take flight in that situation, because, like, what else could you do? Stay? I don't think so. I think flight was the natural thing to do.
Awesome. Well, there you have it, live from the streets, ENN exclusive. In both The Great Gatsby and The Wars, there's clear evidence that characters in both of these works of literature experience conflict throughout the storyline. Experiences that all of these characters face throughout the storyline progress the theme of internal versus external wars. With very different definitions for both of these terms, it is easily identified as relating one's personal issues or struggles to a catastrophe on the headline of our news show. At this time, I'd like to warmly welcome back Mr. Timothy Finley to our panel as we look deeper into the book, The Wars. As the story of Robert Ross progresses from home life in Canada to fighting overseas, it is very evident that Robert Ross is fighting a unique war internally and externally. So in the book, I know there's a famous quote that really relates to this argument, supporting that Ross was fighting both an internal and external war. Do you think you could elaborate on that?
Yeah, of course. And I quote, "Where in his dark was the world he had known, and where was he being taken to so fast there wasn't even time to stop."
Do you think you could elaborate more on what this quote actually means and provide more reasoning?
Yeah, of course. So this quote identifies the struggle that Robert Ross dealt with internally while the world around him was changing or being blown up.
This concludes our interview based on the theme of internal versus external wars, based on the book The Wars by this great man right here, Timothy Finley. I'd like to thank you for your time, sir.
Yeah, no problem. I love the show.
Alright, awesome. Take it away, Susie.
On this interview with Timothy Finley, we saw how Robert Ross clearly experienced an internal war within himself that he portrayed throughout the book. But in terms of The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald, we clearly see the external wars being portrayed in terms of the different social classes. As the storyline progresses in The Great Gatsby, we clearly see how problems arise in between the social classes. Much like the problems that we see in today's society, characters like Tom Buchanan and Jay Gatsby really represented a different ideology. Unlike the transparency of warfare, the tension between East Egg and West Egg grew to a boiling point through the characters of Tom Buchanan and Jay Gatsby. While the East Egg is known for its old money, social superiority, and respectability, the West Egg is just known for its cheap, new money.
Go.
The rowdy, illicitly behaved party-going of the people in the West is very represented by Gatsby. In fact, not only does Gatsby's huge, elaborate parties represent exactly what the West Egg stands for, Gatsby himself personifies the characteristics that set East and West Egg apart. Now we're heading back to interview room so we can get the inside scoop from the one and only F. Scott Fitzgerald, the one who wrote the amazing novel The Great Gatsby, so we can get his opinions on what we have said so far. Now I'm going to introduce to you guys the one and only F. Scott Fitzgerald. Hi, nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. Thanks for being here. We really appreciate that you're here with us today, Mr. Fitzgerald.
Oh, no problem.
Alright, so we have a few questions to ask you today, but the first question that we want to ask you is that how do you think you would say you portrayed the battle that was shown in your novel, between the people who had old money and the people who had new money, and that the hostility between those two groups?
Well, pause it. Old money are people that had money in their families for generation after generation. Whereas people with new money are people that have made money and gotten rich very quickly, such as bootleggers, gamblers, people that got an inheritance very quickly. And so the old money people do not respect the new money people because they feel they don't deserve the money they gotten. They haven't worked as hard. The character I've chosen to represent old money, or East Egg, is Tom Buchanan. I created Tom Buchanan to take a very clear side to support the views of old money. A quote that supports this is when Tom says, "A lot of these newly rich people are just big bootleggers," and he's right. Tom is generalizing all of the residents of West Egg / new money as something negative.
Wow, thank you, Mr. Fitzgerald, for such an intriguing answer.
It was my pleasure.
I hope our viewers can get some great insight on Mr. Fitzgerald's answer and see the connections that he made between internal and external wars and the hostility between the new money and the old money.
That's it?
Bye.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming.
Oh, thank you for having me.
The last thing to cover will be Escape from Reality, and our intern Sheena will be here to cover it. Take it away, Sheena.
Hi, I'm Sheena, and today I'll be covering the escape from reality. In the stress and hassle of daily life, it's understandable to leave your normal routine. In The Great Gatsby, it is very evident that characters such as Tom Buchanan and Myrtle Wilson seek something of a personal paradise that can carry on the affair that has been unfolding. In similar likeness, in The Wars, we can see a strong example of characters seeking escape. Dealing with the morose atmosphere perpetuated by his parents' strained relationship, Robert quickly made up his mind, and in fact, his decision was so fast, his mother hadn't given the chance to say goodbye to him on his way to go to the army. At this point in time, I would like to bring on Timothy Finley once again. Timothy Finley! Hi, please tell us something about Robert going to war.
Yeah, sure. There is mud on his cheeks and forehead, and his uniform is burning. Long, bright tails of flame are streaming out behind him. The drastic decision led Ross to seek something new in life, and found what he was searching for.
Oh, quite similar to the strained relationship that the parents of Robert Ross experienced. The failing marriage of two families holds reason to the escape that also Tom and Myrtle evidently found in the affair they carried on throughout the story of The Great Gatsby. Well, thank you for your time, Timothy Finley. It was a great time learning about the wars.
Yes, my pleasure.
Yeah, see you next time. Coming from the gloomy atmosphere of the Valley of Ashes, Myrtle undoubtedly saw this time with the rich, successful Tom as a true escape from her life in the valley. Both Tom and Myrtle had an apartment in New York, which was an escape from their lives, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. As I wrote in the book, the apartment was on the top floor. A small living room, a small dining room, a small bedroom, and a bath. Yeah, this relationship had no real meaning, much like the relationship of a marriage.
In conclusion, the analysis we have made on the two books, The Wars and The Great Gatsby, have themes of fight or flight, external and internal wars, and escape from reality. When characters from these novels are faced with a difficult task, we also see that their actions can cause drastic decisions to be made. By analyzing these three themes and comparing them to the novel, we can determine that the characters take action based on their experiences and situations.